He had everything a man could ever want. From the outside, his life looked perfect. He lived in a huge apartment that touched the clouds, drove cars that most people could only dream of, and had a bank account that made him untouchable in the eyes of the world. People often saw him at fancy events, smiling for cameras, talking to people who mattered in business and society. But what no one could see was the emptiness that lived in his heart. Every morning, he woke up to silence, despite the city buzzing below him. The walls of his apartment were beautiful, decorated with art he didn't truly understand, filled with furniture that was expensive but lifeless. He would make himself coffee, walk to the balcony, and look down at the streets, feeling a strange kind of loneliness that no amount of money could fix. People often asked him how he could feel lonely with so much, but he knew the truth. Money could buy comfort and luxury, but it could never buy real love or trust. Work was his only companion. He spent hours in his office, signing deals, making decisions that affected thousands, and building his empire higher. He had assistants who waited for his every call, secretaries who prepared his meetings, and colleagues who admired him. Yet all of this admiration felt hollow. At night, when he returned to his apartment, the silence would hit him like a wall. He tried to distract himself with television, music, or reading, but nothing filled the emptiness inside. He had tried relationships before. There were women who smiled at him for his wealth, and some who were fascinated by his status. For a moment, he thought he had found someone genuine, but it always ended the same way: disappointment, lies, and heartbreak. Over time, he built a wall around his heart. He told himself that love was not for him, that perhaps people like him were meant to live in their golden cages, admired but never truly loved. One evening, the city was wrapped in a heavy blanket of clouds, and rain began to fall. He left his office later than usual, the streets wet and glistening under the dim lights of street lamps. The sound of the rain on the windshield was soothing in a strange way. He drove slowly, watching the droplets race each other down the glass, his mind wandering. For once, he didn't think about deals or meetings. He thought about the quiet moments of his life, the emptiness that money could not touch. As he turned a corner, something caught his eye. There, under a weak street lamp, was a girl. She looked small, fragile, and completely alone in the pouring rain. Her clothes were soaked, clinging to her body, and she held a small bag close to her chest. She was shivering, her face pale, her hair plastered to her cheeks. He felt something unfamiliar stir in him, concern, a desire to help, and then quickly a thought that always stopped him before. Why should I care? She is a stranger, a part of this city he never noticed before, yet he could not drive past her. Something in her eyes stopped him. They were not filled with fear or desperation, but a quiet strength. Despite her situation, she seemed determined, as if she had faced worse and survived. He pulled over, hesitating for a moment, his hand hovering over the car door. He had never done anything like this before. He was the man who had everything but gave nothing. But something about this rainy night made him step out. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice almost lost in the sound of the rain. She looked up at him, startled. Her eyes were wary, but there was also a hint of curiosity. "I'm fine," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You're soaked." "You should come under the awning at least," he offered, pointing to a small shop entrance nearby. She hesitated, glancing at him, then at the wet streets, and finally nodded. She followed him slowly, as if unsure whether she could trust the stranger. They stood under the small shelter, the rain falling around them, creating a quiet bubble of shared space. He handed her a dry scarf he had in his car, a simple gesture, but one that seemed to mean more than he expected. She took it, and for a moment there was silence. Just two people, a rainy night, and a strange sense of connection that neither could explain. "I don't know where I'm going," she admitted after a while, her voice barely above the rain. "I have nowhere to stay tonight." He felt a pang in his chest. Most people in his world would have ignored her, turned the car around, or given her a few dollars and left. But he couldn't. "Do you want to come with me?" "Just for tonight. You can stay dry at least," he asked. She looked at him, surprise flashing across her face. "Why would you do that?" she asked, genuinely puzzled. "Because no one should be out in this rain alone," he said simply. It was the first time in years he had spoken without thinking about appearances or consequences. She hesitated, then finally nodded. Together, they walked to his car, her small hands trembling from the cold. He helped her inside, offering warmth and a sense of safety she hadn't felt in a long time. As they drove, he noticed her stealing glances at the city lights, her expression a mix of awe and disbelief. She had seen the streets, the rain, and the people, but never anything like this. For him, the drive was something new too. He had never carried someone like this, someone who depended on him in such a simple, human way. It was not business, not power, not control, human connection. And for the first time he realized how much he had missed this, even if he did not know it until now. When they arrived at his apartment, he guided her inside, offering her dry clothes and a warm drink. She accepted them quietly, still unsure about this stranger who had suddenly become her shelter. They sat in the living room, the sound of the rain filling the space, and for the first time in a long while, he did not feel alone. Not completely. She spoke sparingly, telling him small details about her life, where she had been and how she ended up on the streets. He listened, not interrupting, not judging. He realized that her strength came from enduring hardship, not from wealth or status. And he felt a strange admiration, something deeper than anything he had felt before. As the night went on, the rain continued to fall outside, washing the city clean, but also washing something clean inside him. He had opened a door in his heart that he thought was locked forever. He did not know what this encounter would mean or what it would bring, but he knew one thing: his life. The lonely life he had accepted as normal had just changed. And it all started on a rainy night with a girl who had nothing but courage, and a man who thought he had everything but love. The next morning, he woke up to the sound of rain still tapping on the windows. The city outside was wet and gray, but inside, there was a warmth he hadn't felt in years. He got up and found her sitting at the kitchen counter, wrapped in a blanket, sipping on a hot cup of tea. She looked smaller than he had thought, but there was a quiet strength in the way she held herself, even in this new, unfamiliar space. He realized that last night had changed something in him. He no longer felt empty. The presence of someone else, someone who had nothing but still carried herself with dignity, made him think differently. He offered her breakfast, but she hesitated, unsure whether it was polite to accept. Finally, she smiled, a small, genuine smile that lit up her tired face. It was the first smile he had seen in years that made his heart lift. They talked, not just small talk, but real conversation. She told him about the streets, how she had survived day by day, relying on small kindnesses, and learning to trust very little. He listened intently, asking questions not out of curiosity alone, but because he genuinely wanted to understand. He learned that she had once had a family, but circumstances had taken them away. She had dreams too, dreams of working, of learning, of living a life that was more than survival. Her honesty struck him deeply. He realized that she was strong not because she had everything, because she had survived without it. He shared pieces of his life too, though carefully. He spoke about his work, his achievements, the life that everyone envied, but nobody really knew. He didn't tell her everything. There were parts of his life that even he had kept locked away. But he shared enough to let her see the man behind the image. He could see that she was listening, not judging, not mocking, just absorbing and understanding. There was a trust building in the room, a bond that was strange and new to both of them. The rain had slowed, turning into a soft drizzle, but the city was still damp and cold. She wanted to step outside, just for a walk, to see the streets from a different perspective. He hesitated at first. He wasn't used to taking someone out of his apartment, someone who was a stranger in the eyes of the world. But he agreed, knowing that she needed a small sense of freedom. They walked slowly through the streets, the water reflecting the city lights, the air fresh from the rain. People passed by, some glancing at them, some not noticing at all. He could feel the difference between how she saw the world and how he had always seen it. To her, every small act of kindness mattered. Every street corner had a story. Every passerby had a potential to make a difference. He began to notice things he had ignored for years. They stopped at a small cafe, and he insisted on buying her breakfast. She looked around nervously, unsure how to act in a place like this. She wasn't used to being treated as someone important, someone cared for, someone worthy of respect. She picked a simple sandwich and tea, eating slowly, savoring the warmth and comfort. He watched her, fascinated by the contrast of her life and his, and by how something as simple as food could bring her such happiness. He realized how disconnected he had been from the simplest joys of life. Their conversation at the cafe was easy, flowing naturally. She told him stories of people she had met on the streets, the struggles they faced, the small victories they achieved. He listened, absorbing her words, seeing the city through her eyes. He began to understand that life was not about money, power, or appearances, but about connection, resilience, and heart. And she had all of that, even without anything material. As the day went on, they walked through the city, stopping at small bookstores, street-side stalls, and quiet parks. He bought her a coat, something warm and practical. She laughed when she saw it, feeling almost embarrassed by the attention. He enjoyed seeing her reactions, the way she reacted to gestures that he had always taken for granted. She showed him a world he had never noticed, a world that was both harsh and beautiful, where people survived, adapted, and sometimes thrived against all odds. By evening, they returned to his apartment. The sky had cleared, leaving the streets shimmering with wet reflections. She looked at him with a mix of gratitude and curiosity. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly, unsure if she should voice the question. He hesitated, thinking about it. "Because you deserve it," he said finally. "Because I can. And because I wanted to." His voice was soft, and for the first time, he realized he meant every word. There was no pretense, no ulterior motive, no expectation. It was simply kindness, human connection, and concern. She smiled faintly, a little unsure. Something in her eyes shifted. It was not just gratitude. It was the recognition of someone who was genuine, someone who didn't see her as charity, but as a person. She realized that there was no judgment, no pity, just simple, sincere care. Over the next few days, their routine developed naturally. He provided her with clothes, meals, and a warm space, but he never forced anything. She moved at her own pace, adjusting to a life that was different from the streets, but still unfamiliar. They spent time talking, sharing small experiences, laughing at minor mishaps, and learning about each other. He learned about her favorite books, the music she liked, the way she approached life despite hardships. She learned about his work, the pressures he faced, and the loneliness that came with wealth. The more time they spent together, the more he noticed the small things, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when concentrating, the subtle way she smiled when she felt comfortable, the courage in her eyes despite everything she had been through. He realized that her presence had brought warmth into his life that he had forgotten existed. And she, in turn, began to feel a sense of security, hope, and trust that she had not felt in years. One evening, as they watched the city lights from his balcony, she spoke quietly. "I never thought someone like you would care," she said, her voice barely above the hum of the city below. "I never thought anyone would really see me." He looked at her, understanding the weight of her words. "I do," he said simply. "I see you. And I think you are extraordinary. Stronger than anyone I've met." A silence followed, comfortable and deep, filled with unspoken understanding. They didn't need words to express what they were feeling. For the first time, he realized that connection was more important than wealth, more important than status, more important than everything he had spent his life chasing. And she realized that trust, once carefully earned, could be worth more than anything she had ever imagined. Days turned into weeks, and their bond grew. It was not dramatic or sudden, but steady, gentle, and real. They shared meals, stories, and laughter. They faced small challenges together, and each time they found strength in each other. He taught her about his world, but he also learned from her about patience, resilience, And seeing beauty in the small things, through this, he began to feel something that was new and unfamiliar: genuine care, concern, and slowly, a warmth he hadn't felt in years. She, in turn, began to feel safe, valued, and hopeful for the first time in a long while. It was a connection neither had expected, formed on a rainy night and nurtured in the days that followed. It was simple, human, and profoundly life-changing for both of them. The encounter that had seemed random now felt inevitable, as if the universe had placed them together for a reason beyond understanding. As days passed, their bond continued to grow in quiet, unnoticeable ways. It was not rushed or forced. It was gentle, almost like two streams merging into a single river, slowly but surely. Each day brought small discoveries, small joys, and a deeper understanding of each other. She began to feel comfortable moving around his apartment. She would explore little corners she had ignored at first, sitting near the large windows watching the city or reading books from his shelves. He watched her quietly, noticing the way she touched things gently, as if everything she had not owned before was new and precious. He realized that her world, one of constant survival, made her notice the smallest things: the warmth of a blanket, the taste of a good meal, the comfort of a clean room, and he felt humbled. The life he had taken for granted now seemed different through her eyes. One morning, she asked if she could help him with some small tasks around the apartment. At first, he hesitated, unsure how to allow someone else into his meticulously organized world. But seeing her enthusiasm, he agreed. She washed dishes, organized books, and even helped with a few minor errands. He was amazed by her efficiency, her focus, and her care. Each action was thoughtful and precise, done not out of obligation, but out of respect and a desire to contribute. And with every task, he felt closer to her. As if the walls he had built around his heart were slowly crumbling, they began to share meals together. Not just in silence, but with conversations that revealed their thoughts and dreams. She spoke of simple pleasures she had missed, like the smell of fresh bread, the sight of sunlight on puddles, and the sound of rain hitting the streets. He listened intently, fascinated by how much joy she found in things he had overlooked. It reminded him of a part of himself he had long ignored, the part that wanted to notice, to feel, and to appreciate life. He also shared his world with her. Though carefully, he told her about his work, the projects he cared about, and the challenges he faced. He spoke not to impress her, but to be honest and open. She listened, asking questions that were thoughtful and often surprising, revealing that she understood more than she let on. He began to appreciate her perspective, seeing problems and solutions in ways he had never considered. She challenged him gently, offering ideas and opinions that made him think deeply. And he valued her insight more than he had expected. Their evenings became a time of quiet companionship. Sometimes they would sit on the balcony, watching the city lights reflect on the wet streets below, talking in soft tones about nothing and everything. Sometimes they would simply sit in silence, reading or listening to music, sharing the comfort of each other's presence. He realized that the most profound connections did not always require words. Just being near her, feeling her calm and strength, made him feel less alone. There were moments of laughter, too. She had a way of seeing humor in everyday situations that he had long forgotten. A spilled cup of coffee, a clumsy step on the wet floor, or a minor mishap in the kitchen would send her into a fit of giggles, her joy infectious. He found himself laughing more freely, more genuinely than he had in years. It surprised him how healing simple laughter could be, how it brought light into the darker corners of his heart. As the weeks turned into a month, he realized he was beginning to care deeply for her. It was not a fleeting attraction or a desire for companionship. It was something more profound. He admired her courage, her resilience, and the way she saw beauty in the small things. He respected her independence and strength even as he provided support. And he felt a growing responsibility, not out of obligation, but because he wanted to protect her, to make her life a little easier, a little brighter. She noticed the changes in him too. She could see that he was softer around her, more open, more willing to show emotions he had long hidden. He laughed more, listened more, and even allowed himself to be vulnerable in her presence. She felt a quiet sense of pride and warmth, knowing that her presence had brought out a side of him that few people had ever seen. And she, in turn, felt safe to express herself fully, to share her thoughts and feelings without fear of judgment. Their connection deepened in small, meaningful ways. He would notice when she was tired and offer a blanket or a quiet space. She would prepare small notes or gestures to show appreciation for his kindness. Each act, no matter how small, built trust and intimacy. It was not a love story built on grand gestures or dramatic events. It was a love story built on understanding, care, and respect. There were also moments of reflection. He thought about his past relationships, the emptiness he had felt, and the mistakes he had made. He realized that he had been seeking love in the wrong places, looking for validation instead of genuine connection. And now, with her, he felt something real, something that could not be bought or sold. He felt hope, a hope that perhaps love could exist beyond appearances, beyond wealth, beyond status. She too reflected on her past, her struggles, and the choices that had led her to this point. She had faced hardship and loneliness, but she also carried strength and resilience. Being with him did not erase her past, but it allowed her to see that there could be kindness, trust, and genuine connection in the world. She felt a sense of belonging, being seen and valued for who she truly was. One rainy evening, found themselves standing on the balcony together, the city lights shimmering in the wet streets below. The rain had returned, gentle at first, then stronger, enveloping the city in a soft, constant rhythm. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the rain and the lights, and spoke softly. "I never thought someone would really care," she said. "Not just care, but see me." He looked at her, his heart swelling with emotions he could hardly name. "I do," he said simply. "I see you, and I want to." A silence followed, comfortable and deep, filled with unspoken understanding. They did not need to speak to know what the other felt. The connection between them had grown stronger, rooted in trust, respect, and genuine care. It was a bond that neither of them had expected, but one that had become essential to both days past. And their routines continued, each moment adding to the depth of their relationship. They faced small challenges together, and each time they found strength in each other. She learned more about his world, and he learned more about hers. They discovered common values, shared dreams, and a mutual desire for a life filled with meaning, kindness, and connection. He realized that she had brought color back into his life, a color that money and success had never provided. She reminded him of the simple joys, the small victories, and the beauty of human connection. She reminded him that life was not just about achievement, but about love, care, and the bonds we form with others. She realized that he was not just a wealthy man, but someone who could be kind, gentle, and deeply human. She saw beyond his status, beyond the facade he had built, to the person beneath. And she felt a growing sense of trust and affection. A recognition that he was someone who could share her journey. Someone who could support her without taking away her independence. Their days together were filled with quiet moments. Laughter, shared stories, and simple acts of kindness. They did not need grand gestures to show care. Every small action mattered. Each day, they built a connection that was real, authentic, and profoundly meaningful. And in this connection, they both found something they had been missing for years: companionship, understanding, and the beginnings of love. As their days together continued, the bond between them deepened in ways neither had anticipated. It was no longer just companionship or curiosity, had grown into something more profound, something that touched the very core of their hearts. They found comfort in each other's presence, quiet understanding that made the world outside seem less harsh. She had started to feel more at ease with his world. At first, the luxury of his apartment, the vastness of his rooms, and the quiet precision of his life had been overwhelming. She had walked carefully, not wanting to make mistakes or seem out of place. But over time, she relaxed. She laughed more freely, moved more naturally, and even offered her opinions without hesitation. He listened, genuinely valuing her voice. And that respect made her feel empowered and safe. He, in turn, had begun to see the world through her eyes. Simple things that he had taken for granted: the sound of rain, the warmth of a home-cooked meal, a quiet walk in the city, took on new meaning. He noticed the little details that she pointed out, the small acts of kindness around them, and the ways people survived, thrived, or simply endured in the city. She had a perspective he had never considered, and it opened his eyes to life beyond his high-rise apartment and his business empire. They shared countless conversations during these days. She spoke of dreams she had put on hold, of the places she longed to see, and of the freedom she had once imagined. He spoke of the pressures he faced, of the loneliness that accompanied wealth, and of the mistakes he had made in searching for connection in the wrong places. These conversations were not forced or artificial. They were honest and heartfelt, allowing each to see the other as a complete person. One afternoon, they decided to visit a quiet park near the city. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening and the air fresh. They walked slowly, sometimes holding hands without thinking, their fingers brushing naturally. She pointed out birds building nests, children playing in puddles, and the way the sunlight danced on wet leaves. He listened, smiling at her observations, realizing how much he had missed noticing such simple joys in the park. They found a bench beneath a large tree. They sat quietly, watching the world pass by. She leaned slightly against him, and he felt a warmth spread through him that he hadn't felt in years. There was no need for words. Their closeness spoke volumes. He realized that he cared for her deeply, more than he had ever cared for anyone. Her presence brought a sense of peace, a feeling that he was exactly where he was meant to be. They began to face challenges together, not from each other, but from the world around them. People in his social and business circles were curious and sometimes judgmental about her presence. Some looked down on her background, some doubted her intentions, and others whispered about the unusual connection. She noticed these reactions and sometimes felt uncomfortable or hesitant. He reassured her, offering gentle words and unwavering support. He made it clear that her worth was not measured by anyone's opinions, and that her strength and character mattered more than her past or status. She faced challenges of her own. Adjusting to his world, learning new routines, and navigating social expectations were not easy. Yet, she approached each challenge with courage, patience, and determination. He admired her resilience, the way she handled herself with dignity, and her ability to remain true to herself. It reminded him of the strength that had first drawn him to her, the courage that had survived hardship without losing hope. Together, they created a small routine that grounded them. Mornings often began with tea and conversation, afternoons with walks or small errands, and evenings with shared meals and quiet reflection. They found joy in the little things, reading a book together, cooking a simple meal, or just sitting in comfortable silence. These moments, seemingly ordinary, were filled with meaning and connection. They learned to rely on each other to support and encourage, and to appreciate the simple pleasures that life offered. As their relationship deepened, he found himself opening up in ways he had never allowed before. He shared fears and doubts, insecurities and regrets. She listened, never judging, offering empathy and understanding. Her presence gave him courage to face emotions he had long buried. He realized that love was not about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was about trust, vulnerability, and the willingness to see and be seen. She also grew in confidence and self-assurance. Being with him did not change who she was. It allowed her to embrace her strengths, to acknowledge her worth, and to dream again. She began to see possibilities she had thought impossible, to imagine a future where she could thrive and be happy. And through his guidance and support, she learned that she was capable of more than survival. She could live fully and without fear. There were moments of laughter, moments of joy, and moments of quiet reflection. Sometimes they would get caught in a sudden shower, laughing as they ran to shelter. Sometimes they would share stories that made them both smile or chuckle at the absurdity of life. Other times they would sit in silence, the weight of the world outside replaced by the calm of being together. These moments created a rhythm in their lives, a sense of normalcy and happiness neither had expected. One evening, they attended a small gathering at his apartment. She felt nervous, unsure how to navigate the social setting. Yet he stayed by her side, introducing her gently, speaking proudly of her and making her feel included. She began to realize that she could belong in his world without losing herself, that she could navigate unfamiliar spaces while staying true to her values. And he, in turn, was proud to show her as a part of his life, not as a charity case, but as someone who mattered deeply to him. The days flowed naturally, and their bond grew stronger. Each small act of kindness, each shared laugh, each moment of vulnerability built trust and intimacy. They began to realize that what they felt for each other was more than friendship or companionship. It was a connection rooted in respect, understanding, and genuine care. It was a love that had grown quietly, steadily, and meaningfully, touching their hearts in ways neither had anticipated. He thought often about how a simple encounter on a rainy night had brought her into his life. He realized that love often appears unexpectedly, in moments that seem ordinary at first, but carry extraordinary significance. He understood that this connection was rare, precious, and transformative, and she, in turn, recognized that he had changed her life. Not by giving her wealth or comfort alone, but by offering trust, respect, and a genuine presence. Their journey was not without challenges, but each challenge strengthened their bond. They learned to face the world together, to support and protect, and to find joy and meaning in the everyday. They discovered that love was not just about grand gestures or perfect moments, but about being present, caring deeply, and embracing each other fully. And in this shared journey, they found something neither had expected: a love that was real, profound, and life-changing. As weeks turned into months, the connection between them became undeniable. It was no longer just a bond of companionship or trust. It had evolved into a deep, unspoken love. They understood each other in ways that words could not always express. The city outside continued to move at its relentless pace. But within the quiet spaces of their shared moments, they found a world of calm, safety, and warmth. She had become a part of his daily life in ways that felt natural and unforced. They shared meals, laughter, and quiet moments of reflection. He noticed how her presence softened the sharp edges of his personality, how her laughter could make him forget the weight of his responsibilities, and how her insights made him consider life differently. He had once believed that love was complicated and unattainable. But with her, it felt effortless, real, and grounding. They spent mornings together, sipping tea and watching the city slowly wake up. Afternoons were often filled with walks, small errands, or simple explorations around the neighborhood. Sometimes they would sit in the apartment reading books or listening to music, sharing thoughts and ideas, or simply enjoying each other's presence. Even the mundane tasks of life became meaningful when done together, creating memories and experiences that neither would forget. The world outside still presented challenges. There were whispers, doubts, and occasional judgment from people who could not understand their connection. Friends and colleagues questioned the nature of their relationship, and society's preconceived notions sometimes created awkward situations. Yet each time they faced it together. He defended her gently but firmly, showing that he valued her not for her past or background, but for the person she was. She, in turn, faced these situations with dignity and strength, proving that she could hold her own while being true to herself. Their conversations deepened as well. They spoke about dreams, fears, and hopes for the future. She shared her ambitions, the places she longed to see, and the work she hoped to do to help others. He spoke of his responsibilities, his regrets, and his desire to make meaningful changes in the world. Through these talks, they discovered shared values and goals, realizing that their connection was not only emotional, but also intellectual and spiritual. One rainy evening, reminiscent of the night they first met, they found themselves walking through the city streets. The rain fell gently, creating reflections of lights and colors on the wet pavement. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the glow of the streetlights. "Do you remember the night we met?" she asked softly, her voice carrying a hint of nostalgia and wonder. He nodded, a smile playing on his lips. "How could I forget? It was the night everything changed. They paused under a small awning, watching the rain. The memory of that night, the hesitation, the small act of kindness, and the beginning of their journey together filled the air between them. It was a quiet reminder that love often arrives unexpectedly. In moments that seem ordinary, but carry extraordinary meaning. Over time, they began to envision a life together. Not a life defined by wealth or status, but a life built on trust, understanding, and mutual support. He wanted her to pursue her dreams, to live fully, and to maintain her independence while sharing a life together. She wanted a partnership where love was not measured by material possessions, but by care, respect, and genuine presence. They faced difficult decisions, too. He had responsibilities that required attention and travel, and she had aspirations that demanded focus and dedication. They navigated these challenges with patience and understanding, finding ways to support each other while maintaining their individual paths. Their love was not possessive or controlling. It was liberating and empowering. As their bond strengthened, they began to share moments of vulnerability. He spoke of his fears, his childhood, and the moments of loneliness that had haunted him despite his wealth. She shared her past struggles, the nights of uncertainty, and the resilience that had carried her through hardship. Each revelation brought them closer, creating a foundation of trust and intimacy that was unshakable. They also found joy in the simplest things. Cooking together, walking in the rain, sitting quietly on the balcony, or sharing a joke became treasured rituals. These moments were not extravagant, but they carried profound meaning. They discovered that love was not about grand gestures alone, but about being present, noticing each other, and celebrating the ordinary moments that formed the fabric of life. One evening, he prepared a small dinner in the apartment. The table was modestly set, the lighting soft, and the atmosphere warm. She arrived, slightly surprised but smiling, and joined him. As they ate, they talked about their dreams for the future, the places they wished to visit, and the work they hoped to accomplish. He looked at her, seeing the determination, strength, and beauty that had captivated him from the beginning. He realized that he loved not just her presence, but her spirit, her courage, and her heart. After dinner, they sat on the balcony, the city lights twinkling below. The night was calm, the air cool and refreshing. He took her hand gently, feeling the warmth and connection that had grown between them. "I never thought love could be like this," he said quietly. "Unexpected, gentle, and real. You've changed my life in ways I can't even describe." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting sincerity and emotion. "You've changed mine too," she replied softly. "I never imagined someone would see me, not just my past, but who I truly am. And now, I feel like I can dream again." They sat in silence for a while, holding hands, feeling the depth of their emotions. The city moved around them, busy and relentless. But in that moment, they were in a world of their own creation, a world of trust, love, and understanding. It was a love that had grown quietly, steadily, and meaningfully, transforming both of their lives. As time went on, their relationship continued to flourish. They faced challenges, celebrated successes, and shared countless small moments of joy. Their love was not defined by wealth or circumstance, but by connection, empathy, and mutual respect. They discovered that true love is not about perfection or grand gestures, but about seeing each other fully, accepting each other completely, and growing together. In the end, they realized that life's most profound moments often arrive unexpectedly. A rainy night, a small act of kindness, and an openness to connection had brought them together. And in each other, they found not only love, but friendship, trust, a sense of belonging that neither had experienced before. Their story was a testament to the power of compassion, resilience, and the transformative nature of love found in the most unexpected places. Months had passed since. Their lives had intertwined on that rainy night. What had started as a chance encounter had now become a part of their daily lives, a connection so deep that neither could imagine life without the other. They had moved beyond the initial hesitations and uncertainties, settling into a rhythm of companionship, trust, and mutual care. But with time came new challenges, new opportunities, and moments that tested the strength of their bond. She had grown more confident and independent in his world. The apartment, once vast and intimidating, now felt like a home she had helped shape. Her touches were seen in small details: how she arranged flowers, selected music for their evenings, or added little personal touches that made the space warmer and more inviting. He noticed these changes, feeling proud and deeply moved by how naturally she had made herself a part of his life. But more than that, he admired the way she navigated her new world without losing her identity, strength, or dignity. Their mornings often began quietly, with the sun streaming in through the large windows and the hum of the city below. They would sit with their coffee or tea, talking about the day ahead, or sometimes just sitting in silence, savoring the calm together. The silence was never awkward. It was comfortable, a shared understanding that they were present for each other without needing to fill every moment with words. As they moved through the day, they continued to explore the city together, discovering hidden cafes, small parks, and quiet corners that neither had noticed before. She had a knack for finding beauty in ordinary places, noticing details he had long ignored. He began to appreciate the small wonders of life: the sound of children laughing in a park, the aroma of fresh bread from a corner bakery, the way light filtered through tree branches. Her perspective brought color and life to his once monochrome existence. They also faced challenges that tested their patience and understanding. There were moments when the world outside seemed unkind, when people judged their relationship, or when the pressures of his work threatened to pull him away. Yet each time they faced it together. They learned to communicate openly, to express doubts without blame, and to support each other in practical and emotional ways. Their connection had grown strong enough to withstand the pressures of society, expectation, and circumstance. One day, they visited a small community center that provided resources for people facing hardship. She had spoken about wanting to give back, to help others who were struggling like she had. He accompanied her, not as a wealthy benefactor imposing help, but as a partner supporting her vision. Together they met people, listened to their stories, and found ways to provide assistance. Watching her interact with others, he felt a deep admiration for her compassion and courage. She was making a difference in the lives of others, and in turn, she was inspiring him to see the world differently, to use his resources and position for meaningful change. Back in the apartment, evenings became times of reflection and planning. They would sit together, discussing future goals, personal growth, and shared aspirations. She had dreams of pursuing education and work that could uplift not only her life, but also others in need. He supported her wholeheartedly, providing guidance, encouragement, and practical help, without ever overshadowing her independence. Their partnership was balanced, each contributing to the other's growth, learning, and happiness. They also found moments of deep intimacy, emotional and physical, that went beyond superficial attraction. A touch, a shared glance, a gentle embrace — they communicated more in these moments than words ever could. He discovered the comfort of vulnerability, allowing himself to feel and express emotions he had long suppressed. She discovered the safety of trust, knowing that he respected and cherished her entirely. Their love was built not on urgency or expectation, but on patience, understanding, and the slow, steady unfolding of mutual care. As their bond strengthened, they began to dream together about long-term possibilities. Travel, experiences, and shared projects became part of their conversations. She imagined visiting places she had only read about, experiencing cultures, and learning new skills. He imagined sharing his world in ways that were meaningful and grounded, creating experiences that neither of them would forget. Their dreams intertwined, forming a vision of a life filled with purpose, love, and shared adventure. Yet, despite the comfort and joy, they both understood the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing every moment. They made it a habit to express gratitude, to acknowledge the little things, and to celebrate each other's efforts and presence. A smile, a kind word, or a small gesture became a language of love that neither had anticipated but both cherished deeply. One night, during a particularly heavy rainstorm, they found themselves sitting on the balcony once again. The rain created a familiar rhythm, echoing the night they first met. She leaned against him, and he wrapped an arm around her, holding her close. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked softly, her voice carrying the weight of memory and wonder. He nodded, a small smile touching his lips. "Every day. It feels impossible that something so simple could change our lives so completely." She looked out at the rain, a thoughtful expression on her face. "I never imagined I could have this. This feeling of safety, of love. I didn't know it existed for someone like me." He held her hand tighter, feeling the depth of her emotions. "It exists for you because you deserve it. Because of who you are, and it exists for me because of you. You've changed everything." They sat in silence, letting the rain wash over the city, feeling the pulse of life around them and the quiet strength of the love they had built together. It was a love that had grown from a chance encounter into a profound, transformative force shaping their lives, guiding their choices, and giving them hope for the future. As months turned into a year, their life together became a testament to the power of connection, compassion, and understanding. They continued to face challenges, celebrate victories, and navigate the complexities of the world together. Each day brought new opportunities for growth, for laughter, and for deepening their bond. Their love was not flashy or dramatic. It was steady, resilient, and human, built on the foundation of trust, care, and mutual respect. Looking back, they often marveled at the improbability of it all a rainy night. A small act of kindness, and the willingness to see each other fully. Their story was one of transformation, showing that love could arrive in the most unexpected ways and places, changing lives forever. And in each other, they had found not only love, but partnership, friendship, and a shared journey that would carry them forward, no matter what challenges or joys awaited them.